sunset fades over the horizon as a man kneels on the beach, digging shallow holes in the sand. His fingers effortlessly pull out an old-fashioned brooch, beautifully elegant gold with sapphire diamonds on the edges. It looked like the one you'd seen in an old-time movie. The next items that were being pulled out of the sand were coins and a modern-looking wallet, yet the man's attention was immediately caught by the hand-shaped thing sitting just a little deeper in the grainy, tan substance. He hesitates a few moments, probably thinking up some insane theories on the finding. The item itself could be a real hand, or it could be the hand of a mannequin, or from some doll, anything. The man scoops up all the findings, including the hand-shaped one, and scurries from the beach, past a few people jogging and toward the parking lot. He throws the shovel into the trunk, carefully places his newfound discoveries on the back seat before getting into the driver's seat. He headed home at an unusually faster rate than the speed limit allowed. However, no one police officer that he sped by attempted to stop him. He pulled into his driveway of his house. Not more than 20 minutes later, he grabbed everything that he had on the beach and hurried up the sidewalk. He placed the tools that he had in a nearby shed in order to prevent them from being stolen, and then he headed inside of the house. The man's legs carried him across the hardwood floor of his living room, the light blue paint on the walls basking in the evening glow of the withering sunlight. A light switch is flicked upward as soon as a wooden door is open. The room before him is full of shelves, holding everything that the man had ever dug up, the treasures that he had spent the majority of his life collecting. He places the items in his hand atop a desk, sits down in the chair, and begins placing items underneath separate microscopes to thoroughly inspect his findings. Everything that he had found, old combs, brooches, and coins, weren't nearly as interesting under the microscope as he'd been hoping. He tossed those items aside and pulled the hand-shaped thing towards him. He carefully unwrapped the delicately exquisite golden gauze before placing the old and dusty hand on the base of his microscope. His eyes rested in the pieces of the microscope meant to peer through the lenses. The dust-covered hand was dried out. Several shallow gashes resided on the fingers, yet the hand itself was not decaying like someone would expect. Something definitely seemed off about the thing. The intricate markings, which covered the entirety of the hand, was something foreign. The man pulled his face away from the microscope, turned on the computer sitting to the right of his desk, and began typing onto the keyboard. He searched for what seemed like an eternity, his gaze focused on the images that he continued to click on. Not one picture he had searched pertaining to hieroglyphs had any markings that resembled the ones resting on the mummified hand. If the markings were in fact not hieroglyphs, then what the hell were they? The man did so much research on the hand, on mummification, like they had done in Egypt during the ancient eras. It was like the marking did not exist at all. He took the hand from the microscope tray, wrapped it back up in the golden gauze, and placed it in a box that was sitting on one of the shelves. He stood up from the chair, walked across the room, and opened the door of a temperature-controlled glass room. The man then placed the rest of his findings on the surrounding shelves before exiting the room, the light shutting off before the door shut behind him. He went to another room a few feet down the hallway, the door shutting behind him as he stripped out of his clothing and crawled into the comfortable, fluffy bed. His eyes slowly closed after a couple of moments, and he drifted into a peaceful slumber. The clock resting on the nightstand beside the bed strikes 3 in the morning just as the man opens his eyes. He turns his head to the left, only to realize that his bedroom door is open. He sits upright in the bed. Something moves underneath the sheet, slowly creeping towards his left foot, causing him to pull the sheet off. That dusty old hand rests beside him, the index finger slightly twitching, which is impossible. He moves his feet away from that horrid thing, yet it crawls even closer. How can any of this be possible? You're dreaming, he calmly tells himself. None of this is real. I'll wake up in the morning to a normal house and an empty bed. The pillow grates his head once more, and he lays back down with his eyelids clenched shut. His chest slowly rises and falls, while he drifts into sleep once more. The red numbers of the clock read 3:30 in the morning as the floorboards creaking sound within the bedroom. A sliver of moonlight shines through a crack in the curtains to reveal a tall, dusty figure trudging towards the man's bed. The figure is dressed in a golden gauze similar to the one that the mummified hand had been wrapped in. Long and brittle hair rests atop the figure's shoulders. A golden tiara rests atop the thing's head as it nears the man's bed. A groan escapes through the dusty lips as the figure raises its right arm, a stump where the hand should be now, pointing at the man. Something must have startled the man awake. His eyes widened upon seeing the figure standing beside his bed, the arm with no hand pointing directly at him, the blue of his eyes having gone white with fear when he notices that mummified hand on his chest. The man lets out a horrible scream when the hand suddenly drops within his chest, clutching tightly onto his beating heart. Blood rolls down the side of the man's chest, pooling on the white cotton fabric sheets as the hand rips out his heart. It crawls out of the man's chest once more and turns towards the direction of the figure. Mine! A distorted voice screams. Digging had been the hobby of the man. It always had been. It was unclear whether it was the way that the metal head of the shovel easily glided underneath the dirt or the miraculous things that he would find within. But the act itself had proved to be therapeutic for him. There had been a lot of cool things sitting in the sand or in the dirt of the earth. Lost trinkets, heirlooms long forgotten, and pretty much anything that can be left behind. But the one thing he should have never stumbled upon was that mummified hand. Shallow digging. What a bitch it can be.